Hey guys, today you're just going to do a quick review for your placement test for next year. So let me tell you a little bit about how this works. Every year, 6th grade takes a math placement test, and I use that test to help place you in the right math class for next year. So this shouldn't be something that's overly stressful to you. I just want to see what you know. And even as we do this review, because I really want to see what you've held on to, it's just going to be a pretty quick review. So the things we're going to review are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. We'll talk a little bit about the same thing with decimals, and then we will review equations. If you, real quick in your head, know that you feel really confident with all of those things, feel free to just jump right into your placement test. This will likely be 2 videos because it keeps cutting me off. So you can also just kind of fast forward through things if you're like, I know for sure that I remember how to do this, and find the things where you need help. And then reach out to me if you have questions. Please make sure you take this placement test before Friday. That's really important. All right, so let's get started. The first thing we're going to talk about is adding and subtracting fractions. So I'm just going to leave the screen small so you guys can see what I'm doing here. When we're adding and subtracting fractions, we have to make sure we have a common denominator. So with 3 1/6 and 1 5/9, our least common multiple is 18. So that's going to be our common denominator. So I'm going to change both of these so that my denominator is 18. Keep our whole number the same. Okay, and remember, I'm not going to do this with all of these, but quick review, the way we go from 6 to 18 is multiplying by 3. So 6 times 3 is 18. Whatever we do to the bottom, we also have to do to the top. So 1 times 3 is 3. So we have 3 and 3/18. And then 1 5/9 becomes 1 10/9. Because 9 times 2 is 18. 5 times 2 is 10. Now, we can't do 3 minus 10, right? If I have 3 apples, I cannot give you 10 of them. So we need to borrow. We borrow from our whole number. So see here, I changed the 3 to a 2. All right, and then we add our denominator to our numerator. So 18 plus 3 is 21. We're going to change this to 21. And the reason we do that is because we are essentially just adding 18/18, right? 18/18 plus 3/18 is 21/18. So if you need to rewind that and watch it again, you can do that on how to borrow. So now we've got 21 minus 10, which is 11. And our denominator stays the same. So 11/18. And then we subtract our whole number. 2 minus 1 is 1. So our final answer is 1 11/18. We cannot reduce that or simplify it, so we're just going to leave it alone. Okay? All right, next up is 5 7/8 plus 3 9/12. I'm going to go through this one a little faster. Same thing, we need to find a common denominator. Our common denominator is going to be 24. Okay? So 8 times 3 is 24. 7 times 3 is 21. So that becomes 5 21/24. And 3 9/12 is going to become 3 18/24. Because 12 times 2 is 24, and 9 times 2 is 18. Now we can add 21 plus 18 is 39. Our denominator stays the same. And we can't forget about those whole numbers. 5 plus 3 is 8. Now, 39/24 is an improper fraction. Our numerator is greater than the denominator. So we need to change that to a mixed number. You'll have to do just that on your placement test. So quick review. We just ask ourselves, how many times does 24 go into 39? And it's 1. With how many left over? And that's 15. So 1 15/24. Now, I'm running out of space, so I'm going to kind of loop around here, guys. So, just looping around. Now, we need to add this to our whole number that we originally had. So, 8 plus 1 is 9. So, we have 9 and 15/24. Okay? But we're still not done yet because 15/24 can be reduced. We can divide 15 and 24 by 3. So now 15 divided by 3 is 5 and 24 divided by 3 is 8. So we are left with 9 and 5/8. That was a lot of work for one problem. Rewind if you need to. Hopefully that does feel like review. All right, now let's talk about multiplying fractions. So you have to change your mixed numbers to improper fractions and put whole numbers over 1. So on this first one, we have both of these things happening. We have a mixed number, 5 3/5. We have a whole number. So first, let's change our mixed number to an improper fraction. We do that by multiplying our denominator times our whole number, and then we add the numerator. Remember that kind of little circle we make? So 5 times 5 is 25, plus 3 is 28, and our denominator stays the same. So 28/5, and we put our whole number over 1. So 28/5 times 4 over 1. And then we just multiply straight across. Now, 28 times 4 might be a little hard in your head, so you can work that out off to the side. 8 times 4 is 32. And 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So we end up with 112 over, and we just multiply the bottom as well. 5 times 1 is 5. Now again, we're left with an improper fraction, 112 over 5. So to change that to a mixed number, we need to divide 112 by 5. Okay, so we're going to work that out off to the side. You will definitely need scratch paper for your placement test. 5 goes into 11 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Subtract, bring down. 5 goes into 12 2 times. 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so when you divide that, your whole number here becomes your whole number here. And then your remainder, our remainder is 2. The remainder becomes the new numerator. And our denominator, which was 5, stays the same. So 112 over 5 is the same as 22 2/5. Okay? All right. I'm not going to do the next one for time's sake, guys, but same thing. We would change 8 2/5 to 42/5, and then we would just multiply straight across, reduce, and simplify. Now, dividing fractions is a little different, but it's also kind of the same. So we have 2 3/5. Sorry if that's hard to read on there. Divided by 5. The first thing we want to do is change any mixed numbers to improper fractions and put whole numbers over 1. So you want to do those first. That's really important. So 2 3/5. We're going to multiply. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13. Denominator stays the same. 13/5 divided by 5 over 1. We put those whole numbers over 1. Now, if this was a mixed number, we would change it to an improper fraction first as well, like the second problem on the example, okay? Step 2 with dividing fractions is you have to flip that second number. Don't forget to flip the second number. Remember, we changed division to multiplication, flip the second number, the reciprocal. That's what we call that, the reciprocal. So we do 13/5 times 1 over 5. So see, I changed division to multiplication and then I flipped it. But that's why it's so important to change those mixed numbers to improper fractions first or put your whole number over 1. Now we just multiply like we would. And 13 times 1 is 13. And 5 times 5 is 25. And we cannot simplify or reduce. So we're just going to leave it alone. All right, guys, so I told you this has been cutting me off. If it cuts me off, then just stay tuned for video 2. And I'll try not to lose my mind when it cuts me off. Okay. All right, adding and subtracting decimals. Now, I'm not going to go over this too much. You can look at these examples. The really key thing here is you have to line up your decimals, okay? Now with adding, that's a little easier. So you'll see, right, we change our 12. If we had a decimal, it would be right here, right? That's the same as 12. And we line up our decimal points. And then we add or subtract. And we just keep those decimal points lined up. Now it does get a little trickier when you're subtracting, so let me show you that. So we want to line up, right? So 13.6 minus 4.52. So let me go ahead and line up that decimal. It's going to go right there. My 4 goes here, and then my 5 and my 2. Now, I know you guys really do know this, but the temptation is just to bring this 2 down, but that's not what we do because this is the same as a 0. If I have 0 apples, I cannot give you 2. I have to borrow. I know you know that, but sometimes we get in a hurry. So annex that 0. We're going to change this to a 10, change our 6 to a 5. 10 minus 2 is 8. 5 minus 5 is 0. Bring down our decimal. Again, we're going to need to borrow. Our answer is 9 8/100. So just don't forget that. Okay? All right. Up next, multiplying decimals. Now, multiplying decimals, we don't care about lining them up. Remember our saying, we're going to count right, move left. So in our example, we have 4 5/10 times 7/100. And I can write it like that. Doesn't matter where my decimals are. Okay? All right, so now I'm just going to work it like I always would. 7 times 5 is 35. Carry the 3. 7 times 4 is 28, plus 3 is 31. So we're going to count right, move left. Here's what that means. We see how many numbers do I have to the right of decimal points. I have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to come down here and move left. 1, 2, 3. I know we kind of forgot about that 0 because we would just end up with a ton of zeros down here and adding it up and it doesn't change anything, right? Now if I had a different number other than 0 there, I would keep multiplying like normal. I would add it. I would count right, move left. I hope that is feeling like review, you guys. Okay. Dividing decimals. Now, don't forget with dividing decimals, sometimes you're going to need to annex zeros. In this problem, we don't necessarily. The other thing you have to remember is when you have your division problem written like it is up here on my screen, the 52 5/10 divided by 2 5/10. Here's what's important. The first number, not the biggest number. I know you guys know that. The first number goes under the division sign. So in this example, actually I'm going to move that down a little bit, guys, so that I have room to write 52 5/10 divided by 2 5/10. First number goes under the division sign. Now, this is a problem we don't know how to do. So the only time you have to move decimal points is when you have a decimal right here. This will happen on your placement test, by the way. And all you have to do is you just move it one time. So it becomes a whole number. But whatever you do to that number, you have to do to this number as well. So essentially, we've just created a new problem, right? We moved our decimal point, and we moved our decimal point one time here. So now we have 525 divided by 25. Now, if our decimal point would have been here and we had to move it twice, we would have moved it twice here until we have